1. After 18 years in the serving and bartending industry, I can safely say that this is a piece of advice formed over many sour faces, cruddy reviews, and incoherent complaints. To start off, if you've never been to a restaurant, visiting it for the first time during a major holiday will never give you an accurate representation of the quality of food, staff, or atmosphere. From low-level corporate options, hey, tons of careers started in Applebee's, don't knock it, to the highest end, a fine dining independent originally built in the late 1700s, with one of the most extensive wine cellars on this coast, this rule holds true. Firstly, you will encounter a dining room rearranged to press as many guests into it as possible, versus create any nuance of comfortable atmosphere. On high traffic days, restaurants tend to add additional tables in order to take advantage of the additional business. The fact that your comfort and enjoyment aren't put to the forefront as a guest on these few days should be an automatic red flag. Secondly, on many occasions, the menu you will receive will be drastically reduced and modified to exit the kitchen as quickly and easily as possible in order for you to eat and be on your way. Many restaurants spend days ahead of time prepping for this day, and it lowers the chance of truly fresh ingredients on these days as opposed to days that are in regular prep planning rotation. Simply put, you aren't going to get a fair estimation of the food or the menu. Third, most notably, the service is going to be a letdown. By design, it is going to be an incredibly busy day, and the service staff has been drilled to turn tables as fast as possible, and to take as many guests as they can. This comes into contrast with the majority of business days in these same restaurants, where staff is encouraged to develop relationships with their guests. Holidays are filled with overworked staff, usually on little to no break, with their managers telling them to work faster. Finally, the clientele on these days is completely different than on average days at the restaurant. Restaurant staff are familiar with what I can call the holiday upgrade mentality of guests. For instance, people accustomed to going to a 2-star casual dining chain restaurant as their weekly night out will decide to upgrade for something special on the holidays and visit a 3-star casual independent restaurant. Those who frequent the 3-star will travel to a destination 4-star fine dining establishment, etc. This means that the clientele you see on a holiday is actually, on average, going to be a step down from the normal clientele. This is also a problem for the service staff, because the restaurant is filled with people very unaccustomed to the restaurant's practices and serving standards. This tends to cause a lot to be sent back, thus slowing the kitchen even more. If you're looking to get a good idea of just how good or bad a restaurant that's new to you can be, I'd highly recommend stopping in general, on a slow weekday evening. Don't feel embarrassed to ask the staff to tell you about the restaurant, its food, and what they like about it. These are the times when staff wants to meet you, and will go out of their way to impress you, as the pressure is off, and they have the opportunity to do their best for you. This will lead to a much lower chance of disappointment. 2. So there I was on an unassuming Sunday afternoon, mindful of hope and a naive attitude. I was only a smidge hungover from the night before, but nothing was going to stop me from getting that bread today. I walked into work, dick swinging in the breeze, and tossed my jacket on a chair like the fucking Fonz. I decided to walk through to the back of house with my sunglasses on, so I could stunt these cooks and server hoes. I relieved the morning bartender with a high five and began to get that sourdough. An hour or so into the shift, things are going great. I'm working my tables and rocking my bar top like I'm Kanye at a friend's wedding. Needless to say, I'm crushing it. Before I could even polish my pimp cup for my post-shift bust down, in walks Hell in a bad haircut. This woman looked like Peggy Bundy, and Peggy Hill had a sister who was a total asshole. An omega level Karen, like of Magneto when Thanos just wanted to go in on a bartender. This was the one. I'm used to dealing with these hoes, so I go in like Drake at a high school prom. I wait what I call the required 4 minutes to go greet her and her dumb-looking husband, and she says, "Hey, my dude, we ready?" I'm like, bet this about to be easy as hell. It wasn't. In the distance, a bar ticket prints. Not only was this bitch not ready, but she was so lost in the entire idea of people ordering food from a person in a place where people order food from a person. Mind you, I wasn't super busy at the time, but I would end up being so deep in the weeds I'd need a machete to find my way out. The convo went like this. A bar ticket prints. Are we ready to order? Yes, and we're in a rush to get home to our dog, so... No prob. What are we drinking? I'd like a beer. What do you have on tap? I am standing in front of her, while we are both literally 11 inches away from the taps, listing them all off. In the distance, a bar ticket prints. You know what? I'll have a martini. What sort of vodka would you like? I'd like a blackberry sangria. A bar ticket prints. At this point, 2 of my tables are giving me the I would like my check wave. Okay, the sangria... Actually, what do you have for bottled beer? A bar ticket prints. The couple 2 seats down asks for refills. The couple behind me asks for ketchup. The guy at the end of the bar points at his empty glass. Another fucking bar ticket prints. So what are we thinking? I'll have a tall Bud Light. Okay, and for the husband? A margarita. Another ticket prints. Huh? Have we not run out of fucking paper yet? I'll also have a margarita. Oakley dokley, you fucking terrorist. This took 6.38 minutes. So I get their stupid drinks and food in, and then I realize I have 4 checks to drop off and eventually cash out. What feels like 90 tickets and 137 drinks to make in the printer, 5 drinks to make on the bar top, 1 side of ketchup, 2 Diet Cokes I definitely have to go out back for because this gun fucking sucks or whatever. This hoe over here needs ranch. Dummy at 103 asks to change to some baseball game. I just got sad again. And the Bud Light keg just kicked. FML. Then she sat there for 2 hours yelling at her husband and left a mediocre tip. Another ticket prints. 3. So I work weekends at a breakfast and brunch place that typically does pretty good business. I was out of town for Mardi Gras a couple of weeks back. And last weekend I came down with the flu and unfortunately was not able to work. Suffice to say, going into this weekend I was super broke, still exhausted from having been sick, and I really needed to make some money. Of course, with everything going on right now, our business was impacted, and honestly, my own financial issues aside, I feel like this isn't the best time to be dining out anyway. So we were a little on the slow side on Friday and Saturday, and unfortunately, the people that were showing up were, well, not great clientele. Tips were terrible for everyone across the board. My tip percentage averaged about 14% at the end of the day. It was really discouraging when I felt like working at a restaurant right now. I'm risking my health just by coming in. My parents have been trying to convince me to stop going in. Not to mention, I just got over the flu. So that brings us to today, having made less Friday and Saturday together than I normally would on a Friday alone. And as the shift started when we were even slower, another server accidentally took my first table when I came in, and I told them I just got the next one, not knowing it would be another hour and a half before that would happen. So a couple hours into the shift, about 1/3 of my time on the floor taking tables, and I had basically made nothing. And then we get really busy. Not quite as slammed as we normally are on Sundays, but much busier than Friday and Saturday. I have already told everyone I would be super happy to pick up tables today, so I basically was running 2 sections throughout the whole rush. I never got in the weeds or anything, but I was definitely super busy and working really damn hard to make this weekend worth it. Then they came in. A table of 3 lovely fucking people who were there for some drinks and a good time. Pretty sure I've seen them come in before too. And while I feel like I was able to give them good service, I was busy as hell and I'm sure they could tell. The whole time though, they were just so damn nice and friendly and genuinely were making my shift better already just by being so warm. Finally, they pay their bill and leave. I go to get their last glasses and check. When I opened the book, not only did they tip 20% on the card, already a much appreciated $20, but on top of the receipt was a $50 bill. I can't even tell you how much that meant to me after this past week, and along with the tables I picked up, that generously allowed me to pretty much recoup all my losses from the past 2 days. I really wouldn't be surprised if they had at least been in the industry at some point. Who knows, maybe they're listening to this now. If so, thank y'all from the bottom of my heart, not just for single-handedly digging me out of a bit of a financial hole, but for making my weekend so much better. Otherwise, hopefully, I'll get the chance to thank them in person at some point in the near future. 4. Let me give some exposition. I worked at a dinner theater. For those of you who don't know, a dinner theater is a place where actors put on plays and musicals, and people sit at tables and eat dinner and watch. The theater also functioned as a dance and orchestra school, which is mostly unrelated to this story, but it was still mildly infuriating when you're trying to do your job with 400 little kids getting in your way. I worked as a waiter. I was really desperate to get a job, and when I first started, I didn't pick up on some of the insane red flags at the start, like how they hired me without an interview, how they were paying a lot of employees under the table. My manager was a lovely lady, though she was consistently drunk on the job. There was a 16-year-old bartender, this was in America, and everything we did could be considered a health code violation. Not to mention, the whole building was in constant disrepair. How we were open that long is completely beyond me. We were also understaffed beyond belief. There were 2 theaters in this place that ran at the same time. We call them the Pit and the Main Stage. The Pit was a ballroom-like situation from hell. All the tables were on the same level, and all the stages were elevated. This room was served with a buffet, rather than a course from our main kitchen. Oh yeah, and the place could hold about 200 patrons, and we usually crowded 250. The place was chaos. Our main stage was more like a traditional theater, but with tables, so they were elevated to view a lowered stage. There was a first floor, our ground seats, and our second floor, which were our mezzanine seats. The lower floor could fit around 200 people, while our mezzanine could fit maybe 90 if we were pushing it. Usually we had about 4 waiters on staff, for nearly 500 customers all at the same time. You can imagine that the place was complete chaos behind the scenes. Our operation was operated and held together with 2 rubber bands and an ice cube. Oh, and the owner always seized our tips. I'll try to keep the story as brief as possible, but buckle in, this is a doozy. The day started like any other when I sauntered my crack ass into work and sat down at a lobby table to scarf down my dinner before a shift. I was already in a bad mood because I had been called in last minute by the owner of the place. Yes, the owner, not the manager. Not because anyone was sick or needed a cover.
Your lack of work ethic is atrocious.
I was one of the only people who worked 6 or 7 days of the week, but okay. He threatened to fire me, and as I stated before, I really needed this job. My mom was really sick, and I was the only one who was able to work for us. So I finished my dinner and I get to work, filling cups with ice and water and setting them out, starting up the coffee pots and tea brewer, setting out plates, etc. My manager, who was nice, if not a raging drunk, comes up to me and says,
Lord, mind taking the front with the tickets? Can't see straight to save my life.
I was like, sure, can do. Today was a Thursday, this is important. I go to the front where people hand me their tickets and I scan them in. And sometimes people buy tickets last minute, no big deal. And suddenly in walks this lady, who looks exactly what you think a Karen would look like. Think Kate Gosselin times 3. She looks at me and says,
Yeah, I want to buy tickets to see the show.
Sure thing, how many?
100.
I beg your pardon.
100 tickets, all mezzanine, now.
We didn't have our mezzanine open for weekdays, I'm not sure why, so I began with, Miss, we don't keep our mezzanines open for today, and we don't have 100 seats available.
Get your manager this fucking instant. I don't have time for your stupid antics. Useless cum stain.
I, to this day, sometimes burst out laughing thinking about how this middle-aged woman so confidently called a teenager a cum stain, but I digress. I got my manager, and we were both cranky about this. She had to call the owner, and he demanded that we serve Karen and her 99 other patrons, which were a whole group of middle schoolers. Great. Our machine was old, and I had to wait for all the tickets to physically print out so I could scan them. By the way, we learned later that this lady used fake currency to pay us. I can't scan any faster than humanly possible, and this Karen starts screaming at me to go faster. And, "Do you know who I am? I don't have time for this," type of garbage. After a solid 20 minutes of scanning tickets, I got her and her brats through. Probably on a school trip or something stupid like that. Then came dinner service, the least favorite part of my night. Because we had so many snotty middle schoolers, nothing against kids by the way, I love kids, these ones were just particularly ill-behaved and mean. We were constantly getting tripped, and there was trash absolutely everywhere. I had a real nasty coworker who hated kids and wasn't pleased by this, which caused her to be passive-aggressive and pissy at me, because apparently this was somehow my fault. It's getting close to the end of dinner service, and one final couple come in super late. A middle-aged dude and his wife. We all groan internally, but they aren't past the service limit, so we let them in and get their orders. It's important to note I am a very obviously queer person. I am a transgender man, but back then it was very easy to mistake me for a very butch lesbian. Their orders are finished, and I bring them to the table. This man gives me the nastiest look I've ever seen anyone give me, and he says to me, "What is this shit?" I'm sorry, what? "I'm not taking food from a..." Then he used a homosexual slur. "Get me a new waiter, and get out of my sight." I was shocked by this, and foolishly I persisted. "Sir, I'm really not sure that's called for." When he suddenly takes his plate and flips it all over me, getting food all over my apron and uniform, finishing off with a, "People like you deserve to be killed." I was completely shocked. I didn't even know what to do. And it was in that moment, with my still plastered-on customer service smile, there were just tears streaming down my face, I was thinking, is this really all there is to my life? I'm here getting harassed and threatened for no good reason. Well, I should be with my mom. I ran away and hid in an empty theater that the school wasn't using at the moment, and I just started sobbing my eyes out. I had a full breakdown. Everything was horrible, and I hated the job. And I wasn't even being paid fairly for it. A nice co-worker who was a shift leader came in to check on me. He was the only one who really knew about me and what was going on with me. He held out some logo shirts of the company we worked for to me, and helped me take off my dirty apron. He was one of those strong silent types, and he didn't say much. After I took off my dirty apron and put on the button shirt, he asked very quickly and seriously, "Are you finishing the night and coming into work tomorrow? I don't blame you if you don't. That'll make you smarter than most of us." I shook my head. I decided to quit right there and then. Between the garbage owner and the horrible clientele, trust me, this is just one of many stories like this. This was just a straw that broke the camel's back. I was just too tired, and so done with everything. I hated being a waiter so much. My shift manager gave me a pat on the shoulder, and he said he'll miss me, and if I need anything at all, to just call him up. I grabbed any and all of my possessions, went to my manager, and told her very simply that I quit, before taking my leave. I brought my mom a milkshake, and also got one for myself on the way home. I immediately felt like a weight had been lifted off. I very soon got a better job that paid me a lot better for less work at a gas station. A few months later, the place shut down. Not because those fuckers were being investigated or anything, or that the original owner gained a conscience. No, it was because the owner fired everyone, then packed up the whole operation to move to another state to continue his bull. That lot now hosts low-income housing and a coffee shop. Life is good. Fuck being a server. 5. It was my day off from my job at a sandwich shop. I was on the other side of town applying for new jobs. Yes, this was back before all the job applications were online. I received a call around 11 a.m., one of my co-workers asking if I could come in because they were very busy. I asked how many people were there. 3. That's enough employees, even when it's busy. Get off the phone and get to work. I told them I wasn't coming in, besides I'm on the other side of town right now. Well, about 30 minutes later, I got another call. My coworker again, asking if I could come in. Damn it, really? It can't be that busy, but fine, I'll be there soon. I arrived at noon. They weren't kidding. There was a line going out the door. Hey guys, I'm here to help, I said when I came inside. There are 2 employees and a manager in the store. Employee 1 says, "Thanks for coming in and taking my spot. I really have to leave." Wait, what? "Yeah," said the manager. "She's got to leave. I don't care. This is ridiculous. I thought you guys needed help." Employee 2 says, "Yeah, and it's the end of my shift, so I'm leaving." With the line out the door. Keep in mind, all this conversation is happening in front of customers waiting for sandwiches, and the line is going out the door. "So you're leaving me here alone with the line out the door?"
"Yeah, but I'll call Kay to come in an hour early."
Kay, my coworker, whose name has been changed, was scheduled to come in at 4 p.m.
"You'll do great. You'll be the only one until he comes in."
So my coworkers and manager leave, and I'm alone with a line of customers at the door, and barely any food left in front of me. Meaning I'll have to prep in front of customers here shortly when the make line runs out of prepped food. Thanks, guys. Needless to say, since all the customers saw that interaction, everyone was very nice and patient. I also got tipped very well. Oh, and I handed out free sandwiches because I was so annoyed at my coworkers. Now 3 p.m. rolls around, and I hadn't really noticed because I was so busy. Kay was supposed to be here. I don't have his number, so I can't contact him. 4 p.m. comes around, Kay walks in. "Hey, good to see you, but didn't the manager call you and tell you to come in at 3?
3? No, I'm scheduled for 4. I didn't get a call from him.
Seriously, alright, whatever. Okay, well, fine, I've been here by myself since noon. And proceeded to tell him what happened, and added, "By the way, all those tips over there in that jar, yeah, those are mine. Tips for the rest of the night, we can split." I ended up staying until 8 p.m. because Kay couldn't close the store by himself, and I quit the next day. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, number 88. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, I have a couple of shout-outs I'd like to do before we do anything else. Let's see, okay, the first shout-out goes to Cynical Waiter, the author of the first story. I'm assuming perhaps they're only cynical while they're waitering. That's not a word, is it? Anyway, thank you very much to Cynical Waiter for allowing me to use your story. And the next shout-out goes to... okay. I'm going to have to be very careful how I say this. Nat Digga, the author of story number 2 there. Thank you very much for letting me use your story. Also, I'm going to link to Nat's Instagram page, so that will be linked, I think just before the story I've put the link, if you want to click on through and have a look at Nat's Instagram page. Okay, finally, recording done. I should probably have went to sleep a couple of hours ago and finished the next day, but it is nice to have all the audio recorded and just needing editing when I wake up the next day. It's a thing of mine. I just like to approach it that way. Seems like you're doing less, but you're not really. You're just splitting it. But that does mean I will get done earlier tomorrow, and there can be toe wiggling and the new episode of Picard, and there'll possibly be dinner as well at some point. Might make a curry. I think I've got everything I need for a curry. Got fresh mushrooms as well. Okay, I'm making myself hungry now and I need to get to sleep, so I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.